Just a quick heads up, the Holy Hive Show does contain adult language that may not be suitable for sensitive listeners and children. Welcome back to the Holy Hive Show, a show about Utah and things that are interesting to Utahns, the good, the bad, and ugly. Things that blow.
The good, the bad, and the windy.
Yes. I'm your host, Jordan Dela Cruz. With me today is the producer of the Holy Hive Show, Dan Lawler. Dan, what's up?
Hello.
It's been a crazy week.
You could say that again.
It's been a crazy week.
Tell me about it.
How have you been dealing with everything that's been going on the past week?
I'm mostly just, I had it pretty easy.
Yeah.
My power went out for 8 hours. I only had one downed power line and one tree blocking the exit to my building, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But, just hanging out, kind of living life normally.
Yeah, it's just another wrench in this whole year. But it hasn't been the worst. It is surprising to me though that a windstorm did more damage to our city than an earthquake.
Truly.
Yeah, it's insane. I kind of got lucky. The apartment complex that I live in Holiday didn't really get hit too hard. Actually, we were really happy that we got the windstorm because our AC was out and it was hot the days leading up to the windstorm.
Yeah.
And then it got pretty cold during the windstorm, so we were loving it. Other than just kind of like the howling that like right outside our window, you could just hear it howling pretty loud. But the next morning, I think, was it Monday night?
Monday night
really
into Tuesday morning was the banger, as it were.
Yeah. I remember hearing it all night, and I slept okay, but like I would wake up every now and then and hear just howling. And then I woke up and driving from Holiday to downtown was insane. I passed Liberty Park, and it literally looked like the last scene of a Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that wind could do that to gigantic trees.
Huge trees.
Yeah,
and it didn't seem like... I woke up as well a few times throughout the night, like, damn, this is some wind.
Yeah.
And it just didn't seem that much worse than some of the other quote-unquote wind events that we have had. Mm-hmm. But apparently I was wrong, and it was much different. Yeah. And it was much more powerful because, I think today is Monday, September 14th, so it's been about a week since the event, and there are still thousands of people without power in Utah, my girlfriend included. Poor Annie and Marie Loader. Shout out to them. They listen to the podcast. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, hopefully they can charge their phones and listen to it again.
True. True. That's the only big change in my life is that I now have an office mate that is not a cat. It is another human being.
Nice. So, I think other than that, though, we'll get deeper into the wind event. But other than that, yesterday, NFL came back.
It did.
And it felt normal again for a second. For a brief moment, I woke up, went to the Bjorn's Brew, got a coffee, did some work on my computer, and watched Sunday football. Yeah. It was nice. I
slipped right back into apathy pretty quickly and then snapped right back out of it.
Yeah.
So,
let's go into news. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is just everything that's been going on with this huge windstorm that happened. So as far as city reaction to the wind devastation, last Wednesday, Governor Herbert declared a state of emergency after touring the neighborhood of Rose Park and assessing the damage done by the windstorms that hit Utah last Tuesday. This declaration allows access to certain federal funds to help Utah back on its feet after the storm leveled thousands of trees and left over 170,000 homes without power. According to the National Weather Service, the Wasatch Front experiences one or two isolated storms like this every year, but it's rare for it to be of this magnitude and this widespread. Mm-hmm. So we've seen that stuff like this happen every now and then. They do throw up road signs that say wind event tonight. So we're not. And I think people that live around the mouths of canyons along the Wasatch Front experience it a lot more often. Mm-hmm. But this one was just completely insane. And I noticed on Twitter as this was happening, there was a lot of, and maybe it's just because of the times that we live in, everything so has to be so politically charged, but a lot of people were kind of blaming local leaders for the damage that had been done. Oh. Yeah. I saw a lot of people saying you should have been prepared for this. And
I wasn't prepared for it.
No, neither was I.
Personally.
And we kind of knew it was coming.
I found out like 3 hours before it really started ramping up. Someone told me that I needed to tie the trampoline down.
Yeah.
So,
and I think those are the things that, like, personally we can kind of do to prepare. Like, yeah, you got to tie your trampolines down or tie things that I live in an apartment, so I don't have really anything outside that needs to be tied down. I noticed that our recycling bins were all over the parking lot, though. That was about the worst that happened.
My bike stayed standing up perfectly.
Oh, really?
I thought I was going to fall over for sure.
No.
But it just stood.
Nice. Stronger than
it's leaned up against a rail.
It's more resilient than the towering trees of Liberty Park.
That's right.
But I was trying to think, is there anything, if we know that this is something that happens on a yearly basis, and now we know that it has the potential to be extremely destructive, is there anything that we can, like, do to prepare for this?
I have not looked into this one iota, but I did see a Salt Lake Tribune comment suggest that we move our transformers and other power supplies underground so that they can't be affected by toppled trees.
Was that kind of like what was going on this week?
I have no idea.
I know. I saw a lot of power lines.
Yeah, there's definitely downed power lines. I'm sure that some transformers were damaged. Mm-hmm. I think the downed power lines are probably the biggest issue there.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure otherwise. It's just like it's wind. You know, the damage was done by trees, and I think that trees are pretty cool.
Yeah, we got to keep trees around. We can't just cut down all the trees.
Get rid of trees.
Yeah, for as far as the tree damage goes, I was thinking about. Do you know when you, like, are driving out to, like, let's say you're driving to Colorado, or you're just taking I-80 from Utah through Wyoming?
Yeah.
As along the freeway, there's these fences that kind of, I think they're there to cut the wind a little bit because it's a very windy area. Keeps semis from blowing over and stuff like that. And
I had a couple of those.
Yeah. Semis getting blown over all over the freeways. And I was like, is there something that we could do as far as that? Like, if in these kind of, because I think, now I'm not like an expert, but I'm thinking that people that are kind of used to studying this type of these types of weather patterns can kind of pinpoint where the damage is going to be the greatest. Yeah, because it's all has to do with the mountain. It's coming off of the mountain. Yeah, and we know that neighborhoods that are kind of in line with the canyons kind of get more of that wind more often. So I was like, is there some kind of barrier that we can temporarily stake into the ground in certain parks and stuff like that? I like to think about solutions. And when I saw people kind of criticizing local leaders for not being prepared for all this, I was like, is there something that we could do? And I'm just like, as far as the trees, I'm not sure if there's anything. It's just kind of like, gotta roll with the punches.
I think that there is some legitimate, you can levy some legitimate complaints towards state officials and city officials and county officials, I think, in terms of the cleanup and how it's been managed since. And I'm not saying that I am making those accusations, but, like, you could. I don't understand how, like, you're going to come at, Governor Herbert about, you should have stopped the wind, sir. Yeah. It's like, he's not an airbender.
Yeah. I think the tweet that I saw was geared at Mayor Mendenhall, Salt Lake City Mayor. It's like, I mean, this happened all over the state. It's not it's not her fault, Yeah. But as far as the power too, I think that's probably a good idea. Finding ways to protect transformers from things like this. Mm-hmm. Power lines. I mean, it feels like I don't know if power lines are, like, still the most productive way to get power throughout the city. It seems like we should have updated that by now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's like what. 1800s technology.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Is there an electricity cloud? Maybe more than anything, maybe we just really need to start investing into solar power, solar power, solar panels, that sort of thing. If I had, if there were people that had solar panels on their house, they might be with power. And
maybe the demonopolization of the power.
Yeah, that's a bit concerning to me as well.
Yeah.
Just the whole Rocky Mountain power of it all.
Yeah. It seems like one of the biggest reasons a lot of people are still out of power is because there's so much work to be done by a very small group of people.
Exactly. I saw something like 250 people are in the field is what they said. Like Rocky Mountain Power currently has 250 people in the field, but you're servicing 170,000 people without, like, they're at its peak, there was 170,000 people without power.
Yeah.
And so, that's, I don't know. That seems a bit small to me.
Businesses.
I know it's not like one person per household. Like that's not how it is.
Yeah,
You get the people, you're getting bigger areas.
And usually the repairs that they deploy can cover multiple places.
Yeah.
It's more like, parts of the grid.
But still.
But still. I looked into this a little bit, and I found kind of an interesting op-ed from 2017 in the Deseret News. That was written by Ethan Dursteller and Michael Giberson. And in it, they're quoted as saying, the reality is that Rocky Mountain Power has a state-protected monopoly on electric power, covering nearly all of Utah. This one-size-fits-all electric scheme owned and operated by the utility doesn't value the diverse interests and values of people throughout the state. A regulated monopoly is not the only option, and other states have pioneered ways to allow more consumers to get more of what they want from the electric power industry. So apparently this is something that happens in a lot of states where there's just one company that's kind of covering everything. But a lot of companies have kind of broken that up, and now you can buy power like a cell phone plan where you're getting it from certain people,
Yeah.
And I think that helps kind of spread the responsibility a little bit more so it doesn't fall on one person.
Yeah.
And it's weird that this is state protected because, if we're free market capitalists, then we should, have other companies that
I know
do this type
that
of thing.
Certain municipalities in town, I know Bountiful has their own power company. Like I know our friends, the Roman children, were completely unaffected. They just have their own sort of power company going on in Bountiful. So, and there's some other towns, but for the most part, Rocky Mountain Power.
Salt Lake Valley is just,
It's,
okay.
And I don't know if that's how it always was. I'm not sure, but I seem to remember like when I first started renting way back in the 2010 area.
Yeah.
It was, I think I might have had more choices, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was always just this way.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, if this thing becomes more normalized, I don't know if it's because of the changes in climate that are causing the winds to be stronger, or if this is just kind of a freak occurrence. But if this becomes more normal, then I think we're going to have to think of solutions to figure it out because, man,
that was nuts.
It was nuts.
I will say, I wonder if we've already broken the record for most state emergencies in a year.
Have to,
like
right?
we had the earthquake, which was like, all right, we're declaring a state of emergency. We have the pandemic, that's a state of emergency.
Multiple states of emergencies.
And we've got this notorious wind event.
Yeah.
Which is
now it's going to be the blizzard that just we're going to have literally.
It is supposed to be. The Farmers Bureau says that it's supposed to be Farmers Bureau, like the Farmers Almanac, whatever the hell it is. They're saying it's supposed to be a very snowy winter, so maybe it's coming.
Bring it on. We can handle anything at this point.
Roll with the punches.
Let's go. This next story comes from Lee Davidson at the Salt Lake Tribune. Mike Lee wants to excuse religious institutions from LGBTQ discrimination rights to promote adoption services. So the Joint Economic Committee, chaired by Utah Senator Mike Lee, issued a report Wednesday saying that his bill exempting faith-based organizations from LGBTQ anti-discrimination laws could help boost foster and adoption services. The report states that religious institutions have been forced to stop adoption services because state laws force them to place children with same-sex couples, which goes against their religious beliefs. In the report, it says, it is difficult to know for sure what the effect of losing faith-based adoption and foster care providers has been, but it's likely to be substantial.
Yeah.
That's some real fact-based reporting right there. That comes from the report. That didn't come from the Trib. That came from the actual report that they released, that Mike Lee released. What was your reaction to this when this came out?
I was mostly grossed out by it.
Yeah.
As I typically am when it comes to anti-discrimination laws being done away with because of a church of any sort.
Or generally Mike Lee in the news.
Yeah. Whenever he's in the news, it's kind of like, ugh.
Yeah. But, okay, I'm going to read this and take a shower.
Exactly. But yeah, just mostly just kind of saddened by it for the most part, especially because it sounds to me as if these religious services or these religions are kind of withholding their adoption services specifically for this reason. Like it's almost like throwing a bit of a tantrum and then, we're going to get our way so we'll open up. And so I think like it actually will make a marked difference, unfortunately, because if they've all like kind of closed up shop and now that they don't have to, follow anti-discrimination laws, then they're going to open shop back up, I guess.
Yeah. And if you look into the report that they released, it is about grants and tax money going into these types of places. And I think that if you're an organization that already has tax exemption, you don't have to pay certain taxes, but you want money from the government to fund your, adoption services or whatever, then that money's coming from LGBTQ citizens.
Yeah.
Like that comes from everyone. So if that's the case,
Taxes
if you want,
don't discriminate.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I mean, that's a whole nother podcast. So Mike Lee says that these anti-discrimination laws infringe on religious liberty and First Amendment rights by forcing churches to abide by these laws, and they need, in order to access grant money, they need to be excused from these. But like, those are LGBTQ citizens paying for this.
Yeah,
it's and the other problem with what he's saying is no one is saying that they can't have adoption services, and that if the LDS Church, which I think was mentioned as one of the churches that have kind of stopped.
They stopped in 2014, I read.
Okay.
And they didn't actually cite LGBTQ issues.
Yeah.
It was just like changing culture, which, I mean,
yeah,
I guess that was around then.
I mean, that's on the heels of everything that was going on in the Supreme Court in 2013, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I guess you could connect
odd
the dots.
timing. Yeah. Yeah, and so like no one is stopping these organizations from, doing adoption however they want to. But if they want government money, you have to like liberty and justice for all is part of that. You know? Cue the proud to be American, proud to be an American music. But yeah, like it's just it's whiny, and I don't think the intention here is really to increase adoption services because honestly, if the church's priorities were to find homes for foster children, then I don't think that would matter. But it does seem like there are other motivations behind having a church-run adoption service.
Yeah,
it's
pretty gross, and it does feel just entirely like at the end of the day, it's more unfair to the child that needs the family, and it does. It's kind of funny that on one hand you're like, don't get an abortion. People will adopt that baby. Also, we're not going to help you do that because we might have to give it to a gay person.
Yeah.
It's just,
I know.
I'm not a parent, but I just kind of think if you have like love and you've got like patience, which I feel like you need a heaping helping of, and just like good communication, like that's all you need to raise a kid. Two moms can do that.
Yeah. And I mean, that's probably the problem that a lot of these organizations have is they don't think that that's the case.
Yeah.
And they have this very traditional idea of what a family could be. And honestly, if you give, and he did cite in the report an organization from Arkansas, I think, that isn't held to those anti-discrimination laws.
Yeah.
And I went to their website. I can't remember. I think they're called The Call.
Oh.
It's an adoption service, but it's a church-run adoption service, and it does seem like all of their motivation is getting Christians to adopt babies, which increases their membership.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem to me like the intention is no child left behind, It's like, let's get those membership numbers up. And this just kind of feeds into that. And it's like, again, at the end of the day, if you're taking tax money that comes from LGBTQ citizens, then that has to include everyone.
Yeah.
Like that's just, at the end of the day, that's the only fair way to do it. So good on you, Mike Lee, just an upstanding citizen. Also, this was one of the two news stories that Mike Lee made headlines with this week. Did you see the other one?
What was it? The Supreme Court one?
No, it was,
so 3.
It was him just publicly complaining about KSL. He said that KSL is way too liberal.
Oh, wow.
He said KSL is too liberal and that the church should sell them.
Wow.
Can't please everyone, Mike Lee. What an odd fellow that man is. Anyway, don't have to ponder on Mike Lee too long. Next story. This one comes from Courtney Tanner at the Salt Lake Trib. Salt Lake Police Department were involved in the shooting of a 13-year-old boy with autism. The 13-year-old boy was running away during a mental episode last week, an encounter that came just hours before a new policy took effect requiring officers to try de-escalation first when responding in most cases. The shooting occurred when officers were called to a home near 500 South and Navajo Street to help with what they've also called as a violent psych issue. A mother reported that her young son allegedly had made some threats to some folks with a weapon. The department stated. The boy took off on foot at about 10 p.m. and the police followed. During that pursuit, one officer fired his gun and shot the boy several times. It's unclear what happened before that, but police have since said that there is no indication that a weapon was recovered from the boy at the scene. He has been identified by his family as Lyndon Cameron. According to a GoFundMe post, he was hit in the shoulder, both ankles, intestines, and bladder, and he remains in the hospital in serious condition. So if you want to chip in for the costs that family is going to have to deal with following this, you can find Lyndon Cameron's GoFundMe post online, or GoFundMe page online. And as far as that new policy about de-escalation, it states, de-escalation tactics are no longer suggested or preferred. They are mandatory prior to using force to the effect an arrest unless it would be unreasonable to do so. So I guess it was just a coincidence that this policy was coming down the same night that this happened.
Yeah.
But I don't want this to turn into another angry rant about police officers, because God knows we have enough of that going around right now. And it's obvious that it's angering and upsetting, this whole thing is. But I just want to focus on solutions. And I'm of the opinion that our city can't function without a police force.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not one of those people that are like we don't need police officers at all whatsoever. I think that's obvious if you're kind of taking a logical approach to how a city is run. However, I do think that police forces are vastly mismanaged right now. And I think it's unproductive to say that any of that fault falls on one single officer,
Yeah.
So I just want to talk solutions. Let's start with this de-escalation law. Do you think this is the correct approach?
Yeah, in theory, I do think it is. I was reading through the actual executive order that Mayor Mendenhall sent down, and pretty much every single bullet point has the words, you must use de-escalation, and then the words that appear in almost every bullet point are, unless it is unreasonable to do so. And there is no follow-up or descriptor or anything for what unless it is unreasonable to do so means. And so I don't think there's going to be accountability with that.
That's where the gray area is.
Yeah, the gray area is too vast for me personally.
Kind of like the reasonable suspicion thing.
Yeah. And I think that at the end of the day that we have to take the guesswork out for them. If this is how it's going to be managed, there should be zero guesswork. And there should be, a list of bullet points stating these are the reasons, or these are the reasons why you could use force, but that's not there, so it doesn't feel like enough to me personally. Yeah. But it's fine in theory.
And that's kind of like what a lot of the arguments, like the kind of pro-police arguments are coming from, is if you don't want this to happen, then follow the law. Well, that's very vague. And
he was a 13-year-old autistic boy.
Yeah. And not only that, but when it comes down to the situation where it's a cop and an alleged perpetrator, the law can be subjective at that point until it goes to trial. And then that's when we get objective with it. But in that moment... Sort of. Sort of. But yeah, I agree. I think that if you're going to leave it on the term reasonable, reasonable aggression, then we have to define what that is, or a reasonable reason for aggression. I think cops are trained to get to that reasonable suspicion, to that point of reasonable suspicion. So I think that requires cops kind of agitating people, poking at people until people show their hand. Yeah. They know what to look for when they pull someone over and they have a suspicion that someone might be drinking, or they might have drugs on them. And there's things that they can poke at to get them to show their hand, and then they can go a little farther, or they can trick someone into like allowing them to search their car, you know, and stuff like that. And there's been lawyers that have started YouTube channels to train you on how to deal with cops when you get pulled over. And I think de-escalation reverses that approach. And honestly, like, I think for things to work, you kind of have to give the citizen reasonable doubt. Like, yeah, there's going to be, people that are running drugs. There's going to be people that are driving drunk, but most people aren't.
Yeah. So
you have to start there and then work your way out from there. But again, I don't think it's the end all solution. And in this article, it did mention that there's some updates to body cam policies, and that they're going to be stricter. And I think that also is like essential.
A lot of this, and I know, like, I don't want to turn this into a heap on either, but like a lot of this reads like stuff that could have been enacted in 1964. Like,
I know, yeah. Like, it's way overdue.
Yeah. Why, like, now we're going to make sure that your body cam is on, the thing that is supposed to hold you accountable regardless of any situation. Now you have to have that on. It doesn't make any
body
sense
cams
to
have
me.
been a gigantic point of contention with the whole Breonna Taylor case.
Yeah.
Like that, and see, so that's something, because that's evidence, you know? And honestly, like, I think in the media and with the stories that we've been like looking at this year with police brutality, we look at body cams as the evidence to absolve or bring justice to the victim, when really they could be also like just as much protection for the police officer too, if they're doing their job correctly and something goes down that's, you know, a little sketchy, like that could protect them too. But along with that, cops should be severely punished for breaking those policies.
Yeah.
You know, when something bad happens and you don't have the body cam evidence when you should have, then there should be punishment that comes with that. And I just think, sorry, go ahead.
Well, and usually that something bad that comes with that is death. Like, it is the death of a person.
Yeah.
So like, it's not like we're talking about if I worked at McDonald's and I like dropped a walkie-talkie into a fucking fryer.
Yeah.
Like, it is life or death stuff that we're dealing with constantly. And it just doesn't often get treated with that sort of severity, I don't think.
Yeah. And again, you have a lot of people saying, well, just, you know, follow the law. And it's like, well,
it's so easy to say.
I know. Yeah. It's just the easiest out.
There are quite a few people following the law that are still mistreated. Last month, there was the video that came out, the body cam video that came out of the cop sicking the canine dog on the man that followed all instructions.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, whatever, you know, the deck is stacked in one side's favor, and that's just the way it is, I guess, unless we can bring upon substantial change. But like, this isn't like a Salt Lake City issue. No. It is a Salt Lake City issue, but this is a issue in every state and in most towns in every state. You know, this is
And I think like you said earlier, like, is this something that we should have just been doing 30 years ago?
Yeah.
But, and yeah, it's a nationwide thing, which I think kind of goes to show that, you know, some parts of the country are known for having more instances of racial prejudice than other parts of the country. But we're still experiencing this thing kind of nationwide. Yeah. And I think it just kind of goes to show that, like, the way we train police and the way that, not only the way that we train police, but all of the responsibilities that we put on top of police just need to be rethought and reorganized, because I think, again, so what in this specific case, what we have is someone having a mental episode. It's not someone holding someone hostage in a house or anything like that. And at the end of the day, I think a cop's job, and I'm sure there's going to be cops listening to this going, you don't tell me how to do my job, but like, taxpayers can have an opinion, right?
Yeah.
I think a cop's job is to take someone who's been accused of a crime and bring them to the judicial system to figure out whether they've, you know, committed that crime. And I think we give them so many more responsibilities that should just be given to other types of professionals, and that maybe police forces shouldn't just exist or be made up of police. You know, it shouldn't just be police officers. Like, in this specific case, it almost feels like there should have been some kind of psychiatrist or some kind of social worker involved in the situation. And that doesn't mean that, like, a police officer can't be involved. Like, you should almost have a social worker take into this situation with a police officer being like the last line of protection.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that we rely on them for too many things, and that we need to start finding different professionals to handle different things. Like they're responsible for like the homeless crisis, and they're responsible for managing like the drug crisis.
They're responsible for like evictions.
Yeah.
Like if someone gets evicted, the cops, you know.
It can't be someone like from the city that's like a civil worker.
Yeah.
That's supposed to handle those types of things.
Because I know that in their design, cops are not necessarily meant to elicit fear, or maybe I've just kind of fed into the propagandist machine that is, I don't know if you have looked at like police department social media pages, but kind of big yikes in my opinion.
Dude, it's
just like, hey, look at us
cringy.
handing out stuff to our community. And I mean,
Yeah.
cool. But I can't remember the last time I saw a cop car when I'm like driving or any situation where I was like, thank God. Like I feel safe. I'm constantly just tensed up anytime I see a cop car.
Yeah. And I think I've said this before, but like the social media handling of police departments is super cringy because they often promote not acts that are like good or like or like feedback from people with like actual concerns about things. It's mostly like you have, I guess, what more liberal people would call bootlickers.
Yeah.
People that are just, you know, unanimously supportive of the police no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
They'll promote those opinions, and that's almost taking it to a political level.
Yeah.
When really you should just be listening to everyone and what everyone has to say. But they'll kind of look at these nice citizens really appreciate the police, so they brought us lunch today, and all this. You know, it's such a, or look at this kindergarten class wrote us notes, and it says, you know, we're so happy that we have the police department. It's like, okay, now you're kind of ignoring, even if they are criticizing you, a whole section of the people that you're supposed to be protecting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree, it's cringy, but yeah, so I think this is something like I'm positive. Like I'm hopeful that like we can, at least on a community level, figure this out. I think we need to focus less. Obviously, we want to promote social change everywhere, but I think if we focus on our community, then we could figure things out faster. Anyway, to wrap this up, yeah, I think we just kind of rely on police for too much, and that maybe the idea, I mean, like I've heard recently that they're having trouble recruiting people to police departments. Like people just don't want to sign up to be police anymore. And so they're like having bigger sign-on bonuses and stuff like that for people that they don't want to get into the police academy. It's like, maybe the answer isn't more cops. Maybe it's like, we should figure out different professionals that have a place in the police force.
It's just a better allocation of resources, you know, and more, I'll come back to this anytime a conversation comes up, but like the difference between the amount of hours it takes to become a plumber in Utah and then the amount of hours it takes to become a cop in Utah is 3,168. That is the amount of hours you need more. That is the amount of more hours you need to become a plumber than a cop.
Yeah.
That's an issue.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just think we just need to rethink the way that we police. And again, I don't have any professional experience as a police officer. I know police officers. I've actually had great conversations with police officers about things like this, but like overall, I think it's a culture thing. It's the culture of how police departments are managed. And yeah, like you said, with the social media, the way that police department social medias are run, it does seem like it's starting to get more political, and the people running those organizations do have a stance when it shouldn't be like that. And I think that's when the state needs to like step in. All right. So Utah is kind of moving out of the orange status of COVID. We're getting into yellow. We're starting to get a little looser. The rest of the country is too, except for like some like California and New York, which are probably like screwed for the next year.
Well, California is on fire, so
yeah, California's on fire right now as well. But you know, things are looking. I mean, aside from this windstorm, things are looking up in Utah, and I wanted to talk a little bit about stuff that something that we could look forward to, which we haven't been able to do lately, which is travel. I don't know if I would. I'm eager to get on an airplane.
No, not particularly.
Soon.
I'm not eager.
No.
If the situation called, You know, if I had to fly somewhere, I would do it.
Yeah.
I know quite a few people who have flown.
Yeah.
So
it seems weird to me though at this point.
Yeah.
Like
I'm with you.
Yeah, and I don't. It's kind of tainted air travel for me in this weird way that I don't know if I'll ever get over. I know I'll have to eventually get on planes. I mean, we'll see how the next 9 months goes. We might be living in a totally different world, but for now, we can look forward to at least car travel.
Yeah,
and safely. You know, that's socially distant.
Let's take a ride.
So I want to talk about day tripping, and I thought it'd be fun to kind of look at different places that we like to travel near Utah. So we're going to choose and talk about 3 day trippable places. And what I kind of define as day trippable is somewhere outside of Utah within 12 hours driving distance from Utah or Salt Lake City. So somewhere that you could get to in a day's drive.
Comfortably driven.
Yeah, comfortably driven. No cross-country stuff. Just like kind of very accessible stuff nearby. So, I mean, this isn't like a list. This is just kind of a loose conversation about places that we like.
Yeah.
So let's start with one that you've got.
My first one that I wrote down was just Bear Lake. Okay. You know, it's half in Utah, half out. So okay. I guess
technically, you're always looking to poke holes in the rules that I have for these lists.
I'm a rebel at heart.
Yeah. Okay. Bear Lake.
So you know what's Bear Lake got? They got jet skis and they got sunburns. And it seems like everybody I know has a cabin up there, but never wants to let me stay in it. But that's it's an all right drive.
Yeah.
I think it's about 2 hours, maybe a little over 2 hours. So it's a bit too long to be considered a quick drive. And it's a bit too quick to be considered a long drive.
Yeah.
So it's just right there. Yeah. Where it's like just bordering on my butt snub.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Not too bad.
Are you a lake guy? Do you like lakes?
I do like lakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bear Lake is especially pretty at times, you know?
Yeah.
It can get really nice up there. A boat is nice. Yeah. I like a boat. I've not been on many boats.
What about like water sports, jet skiing, water skiing?
Also fun.
Yeah.
I was never privy to that sort of stuff too often.
Yeah.
The only time I've ever been on jet skis was at Bear Lake.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why it just immediately popped to mind. I was like, oh, that sounds fun. Let's wave run.
I like wakeboarding.
Yeah.
And I saw this video last year of this guy that was wakeboarding. And he dropped the rope, and it bounced off the water, and then went up and went over his head onto his neck. And luckily, he kept his balance and was able to take it off. But I was like, what would have happened if he would have fallen in that
decapitation?
It had to have been, right? And now I'm like, can I ever go wakeboarding again? Like, I just have that fear. But yeah, I like a lake trip. I don't know if I'm like super into like boating, but I love a beach, and I love a cabin near a beach.
Yeah.
And I like a fire near a beach.
I like all of that too. The boat, and I do like boating. Don't even get me wrong. I like being on a boat. I just am not friends with enough like rich white Republican guys.
Yeah.
So I don't have as many opportunities to go on boats.
Yeah. Okay, so my first one is Boulder, Colorado. I was gonna go with Denver, but
go a little more niche.
Yeah, I think a little more niche, and I think. I love a city trip. I love exploring a city and the culture that a city has to offer. But I went to Boulder a couple of years ago, and I had a blast there. And it's like they have great Airbnb options, and usually like it's a very kind of hippy dippy area. And we stayed in this Airbnb that was on this property that had like 3 other Airbnbs, and they were like all in this big circle. And the people that owned it basically lived out of this like house connected to this huge garage where they did like art. So they had like an art studio there. But Boulder's a really cool, like little town. It's got some good pubs and stuff, places to see. But like, if you drive a little bit outside of Boulder, you can go to Estes Park, which is this little town kind of on the edge of Rocky Mountain National Park. And Rocky Mountain National Park is also very beautiful. We were able to check that out too. But Estes Park is also the home to the Stanley Hotel, which is the inspiration for The Shining.
Yes.
Yeah. Not where they filmed The Shining.
Yeah, that's somewhere in Oregon, right?
Yeah. I think that's in Oregon.
Yeah.
But it's
the actual hotel.
Yeah, the actual hotel where there's been reported hauntings and stuff like that. And I believe Stephen King lived in Boulder for a while, and that's kind of where he got the idea for it. I wasn't able to. I'm so dumb. We went to Estes Park, and it's like it's almost like a little Park City type town, you know. And they had this like whiskey tasting going on there, and they just like there's a bunch of people around. It's just like one of those things, one of those places where something's going on everywhere. And then we went to the park and everything like that, and then we left, and I was like doing some extra reading about Estes Park, and that's when I found out that hotel was there. I was like, damn it.
You could have had a time.
Yeah, so I'm going to definitely go back to Estes Park and check out that hotel.
I love it.
Okay, what's your next one?
It's a three-part combo breaker because it's all kind of the same trip.
Sure.
So Island Park, West Yellowstone into Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is great for people who like cabins. It seems to be the theme of my list is cabins.
Love a little isolation.
I do like a cabin. There's so much to do in that stretch, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If you're just staying in Island Park, you can hang out and just float the Henry's Fork. You can go to Mesa Falls, which is just an incredibly beautiful waterfall. Yeah. And then if you want to travel 30 minutes into West Yellowstone, you can go to the Slippery Otter.
Love the Slippery Otter.
Yeah, I love the Slippery Otter as well. Great burger, great beer. If you're afraid of bears in the wild, you can go to the bear exhibit, the wolf and bear exhibit in West Yellowstone. That's pretty fun. And so, you know, just lots of great offerings there. And then obviously just Yellowstone. I mean, I love Yellowstone personally. So.
I kind of want to share the story about the Slippery Otter that time that we went. When we
share
were
it.
Yellowstone.
They're not going to get banged.
No, yeah. So no one. I mean, this is the Slippery Otter being really, really cool.
Yeah.
So don't call them out on social media or anything. But this restaurant we went to Yellowstone a few years ago. Just kind of a boys' trip. Me and Dan and his younger brother Zach, and we ended up eating at the Slippery Otter. And Dan and I were of drinking age, but Zach was not. And
just a couple months out. It
wasn't like a big deal. But we were like, okay, let's just try this thing where we're going to order food. We're going to order a pitcher of beer and ask for 3 glasses. And if they are insistent on checking all of our IDs, just say you left yours at the hotel and that you're fine and you'll go without beer. And so we order food and we ask for a pitcher and 3 glasses. And Zach's like gearing up for this spiel.
Yeah.
And I think did they check one of our IDs?
I don't think they checked any of them.
They checked any of our IDs.
We went to Reach and it was like, no.
No, yeah. He's like, yeah, you're good. And then
I mean, at this time, it should be stated that Zach had like friendly mutton chops as a 20-year-old and looked like fucking a 36-year-old Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah,
so.
He has like an insane beard going on. And it just worked for him. So he was able to hang out and have a couple beers.
It was a nice time.
It was all good fun. It wasn't,
was.
We weren't trying to be like insidious or anything like that. But
yeah.
But that's the vibe that you go for when you go to like places like West Yellowstone. It's just like smaller town. Mm-hmm. Everyone's chill. I think the coffee shop that we went to every morning, there was a guy that was from Sugar House that ran it. And he was like a really cool dude. We ended up talking to him like every morning. And that's like my jam. It's just places like that.
A little small place. You can walk anywhere you need to go.
And then you just go into Yellowstone. It's like an entirely different world up there.
Exactly.
Okay, my next one is kind of adjacent, just south of Yellowstone.
Let's go.
Jackson and Teton Village.
Love them both.
Yeah, I've been going to Jackson since I was a little kid. It's a place that was like kind of an easy weekend trip that we'd go as a family, and it is kind of touristy, and I think that turns off a lot of people. But I kind of like kitschiness. Mm-hmm. Like I like Disneyland, and that's just kitsch out the ass, you know, to like this insane level. But like these kind of little kitschy tourist towns, like they literally have like a Wild West gun show in the middle of the street. The Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum is there, which a lot of people would probably roll their eyes at, but I'm
not sure I knew that was there.
Yeah. And I love like a roadside attraction. Like I love, like even if it's crappy, I still love it.
Great barbecue.
Great barbecue.
Some good barbecue there.
Yeah, you can find good food there. Most of it's pretty walkable, so between the bars and the shopping, you can just like get a hotel, walk around all day. It's pretty fun. And it's not far from a bunch of outdoorsy stuff to do as well. Like Teton National Park, I think is like 12 miles north. And Teton Village. And I remember one time we went to Teton Village and rode the gondola up to the top, which is almost worth the trip all by itself. That mountain range is insane. It's really cool. Is. And my dad was like, let's hike down from the top. And I'm like, no. Like everyone else was like, nah. We're just going to ride the gondola back down. He's like, all right, shouldn't be taking you too long. And we just like sat at the bottom forever until you see my dad like
kind of jogging.
Yeah, kind of jogging.
Doing
down the
down
hill,
mountain jog.
Just like out of breath, going, get the car.
I love it.
Yeah, it was a kind of a fun memory. But Teton Village and the Teton National Park is really, really awesome up there. So yeah, what's your next one?
Just the Grand Canyon.
Classic.
It's not a canyon, it's a Grand Canyon.
The grandest of canyons.
The grandest of canyon. And you know, there are quite a few options at the Grand Canyon. You can go to the North Rim, you can go to the South Rim, you could go into the actual canyon, you know, it's just a beautiful place.
Can you like ride a donkey?
I don't know.
Into the Grand Canyon?
I've only been there twice.
Something, you know. Did you do the skywalk thing?
Would I do the skywalk thing?
No, have you done it? You know what it is, right?
No.
It's a giant like walkway that extends over the cliff quite a ways, and the whole floor is made of glass.
Oh, that's sweet.
So you walk on,
I would
and
do
you
that.
can like look down.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah, tons of cool stuff to do at the Grand Canyon.
When I was moving to Utah from New Mexico, when I was in 2nd grade, we stopped at the Grand Canyon. That was the first time I ever went, and it was like, this place is nuts.
Yeah.
And my mom was just like so scared of everything.
Uh-huh.
And this is one of the oldest stories. Like I've heard my dad tell the stories a million times. But it was just me and him out there, like kind of past the fenced area where you're supposed to be cautious.
Yeah.
And he's just like flinging me over the edge.
Oh no.
and we get back up to the top, and my mom is just like bawling.
Oh no.
Just terrified. And these poor ladies were like, look at that crazy guy out there. And my mom's like, that's my husband. Amazing stuff.
So is that where your love for the Grand Canyon comes? You got the best view of all.
Yeah, I did. You
don't even need the skywalk. You just need your dad to pick you up, hold you over.
Truly.
All right, so my last one is Montana, specifically Butte. I will say Montana, you can go there's a ton of places in Montana that you can drive to. It's pretty drivable from Utah, and it's an extremely beautiful state. But the reason why I like Butte, and a lot of people from Montana would probably argue that Butte's not the prettiest part of Montana, but like the reason why I love it,
it's got a cool personality.
It's the personality, you know. I think it's a gem of a town to spend a weekend in.
Yeah.
Especially if you can plan it around 2 events that I think are really cool up there. They're Folk Festival, which is like a festival where they have a bunch of like tons of bands and stuff. They set stages up all over downtown, and you can walk around from stage to stage. And it's not like a lineup that you would see at like Coachella or anything like that. It's more kind of regional folk music, but sometimes they get like these kind of cool bands in there, and it's just a good time. It's a good hang. And again, like their drinking laws are so relaxed that you can go into a bar and they'll ask you if you want your drink to go.
The true Wild West.
Yeah, you can get shots in plastic cups and then walk over to the park and take shots with your friends. Like it's
just on
so
a swing
relaxed.
set. I love it.
Yeah, and they have a huge Irish population because it's a mining town. It's like historically a mining town, and so their St. Patrick's Day celebration is insane.
Off the chain.
Yeah, so it's another great place if you have nothing to do. And St. Patrick's Day is like one of those things where you're like, what are we going to do for St. Patrick's Day?
Yeah, dye some beer green, I guess.
Yeah, like who's going to a parade?
Yeah.
You know? I think, how many episodes have we just shit on parades now? Like
True.
Parades are not fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like one of those things. Like if you have nothing to do for St. Patrick's Day, just drive up to Butte and like spend a weekend there, and you're gonna have a blast.
That does sound like a good time.
And then besides like kind of the festivities and the super relaxed drinking laws, like there's a lot of history up there that I'm way into, like Prohibition era crime shit.
Yeah.
Like there's some like Dashiell Hammett novels from the 1920s that are about, you know, cities and mobs that are like in these small cities, and they're all like they're inspired by Butte. So there was like mining unions and weird shit going on.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of that weird history. Like there's some speakeasies there, and like these really old historic buildings, and so I love all that stuff. And there's this really dope mansion that they have up there called the Copper King Mansion, and the guy who basically made all of his money on copper up there built this gigantic, elaborate mansion with only a single week's earnings. Like he was making that much money at the time. It was insane. But we went and toured that, and they still have all the original furniture and all this like weird, creepy stuff. And
cool.
Yeah, dude, it's insane.
I've never been to Butte. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's a really fun little town. And not to mention, because of the mining and because of all the chemicals that go into mining, there's this giant toxic water pit out there that you can they have tours for.
You can do cannonballs?
No, you can't. Birds land on there.
Canton balls.
Yeah, birds will land and like float on there and then just die.
Oh.
Like it's that toxic. It's insane. And it's so bad that like, it's been a couple of years since I've checked in on how this issue was going, but the water level was rising to the point where it was like getting to like groundwater level that could start seeping into the groundwater, because it was a giant pit that just filled with water. And because of all the chemicals that go into mining, all of that just kind of seeped into the water, and it turned into this giant toxic pit. And now the water levels are getting so high from the mining pit that they're like in danger of like seeping into groundwater. So I got to check in and see how that's going and how they've handled that. And again, this sounds like pretty sketchy stuff, but this is like shit that I love.
Jordan's pick for his favorite day trip is just an Irish mining town with a toxic pit.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's great.
Butte, Montana. We've got toxicity.
Yeah. And again, like I remember one of my favorite memories from Butte. Like I have some cousins that live up there, and that's how I was kind of introduced to Butte. But like we went up there for the folk festival, and we were watching this band, and we were meeting up with my cousins, and I hadn't met up with my cousin Colin yet, and he shows up with his kid, and I have a beer in my hand, and he's like, "What are you drinking?" And I can't remember what I was drinking, but I was like, "Oh, it's this beer," and he's like, "Oh, let me show you the good beers." And there's a grocery store literally the next street over. And we walk into the store. I'm like, hold on, let me finish my beer. He's like, no, you just bring it in. I was like, what? It's like, this is an open container. He's like, no, just come into the grocery. We walk into a grocery store, and I have a beer in my hand that I'm drinking.
To get more beer.
He's got his kid on his shoulders. I'm like, this is so sketchy. Like being from Utah, this would never fly. And we walk in, and he's like, okay, you want this beer, this beer, this beer. He's like, these are the good ones. And we just buy more beer. I literally am like holding my beer with my elbow, shuffling through my wallet to pay at the check stand.
Amazing.
He's like, dude, you could walk into a police station with your beer. They're not going to do anything. I'm like, it's cool. So yeah, Butte, Montana is awesome. Any other kind of just like side thought places that you like to go?
I was going to put Little America, but I thought you'd slap the shit out of me if I did that. So
what's the obsession with Little America?
It's funny.
Yeah, it's funny.
There are like 16 billboards from the moment you hit Evanston to the moment you get to Little America, which is like 40 minutes, that are all like, come try our ice cream. We've got 79-cent ice cream
It's like the saddest pitch for a vacation.
And a playground.
They're like, you can eat soft serve by the pool in the hotel.
Great Huckleberry Taffy, though.
Yeah.
And then, like, I'm mostly just proud of us, both of us, for not putting Vegas. I'm proud of us for that.
Yeah.
It's a shit drive, and most of the time, it's not the greatest hang.
I had kind of Mesquite on the back burner. Yeah. And this is super, super personal. Like Mesquite's not something that I would tell people like, oh, you got to go to Mesquite.
Yeah. You know? But it's a fun time.
Yeah. It's a fun time. And I honestly kind of like that vibe a little bit more than like Vegas, where it's like, it's just so much.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And the stuff that I like about Vegas is kind of less of the kind of bougie,
glitz and glamour.
Yeah, the strip stuff. I kind of like the old Vegas type stuff. And
Jordan just wants to smoke in a building.
Yeah, I just want to smoke in a building. Absolutely. That's freedom, you know. Yeah. But you can do that in Mesquite too.
Exactly.
I don't know if you
exactly
can anymore.
What I'm saying. Oh,
yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure you can smoke a cigarette inside.
Actually, with the COVID stuff, I think they've kind of changed.
Wow, for one brief moment.
Yeah,
I forgot about COVID and Mesquite.
But yeah, Mesquite, I think is a fun little hang if you are just going with some friends to like kick it. Like we've been to Mesquite on these like little golf trips. Like if you're into golfing, then it's awesome. But there's some casinos down there that have like really fun pools, and if you're just like into like day drinking and just kicking it, it's like not a bad place to hang out.
It's a wonderful place to hang out.
I like the desert, and I remember, this is another like little story. I used to live in St. George, and I did radio down there. And we had like a company trip down to Mesquite, where we went to the Virgin River Casino, which is not the nicest of casinos down there. And we had dinner at the restaurant there, and then we went bowling. Like all the employees at the radio station, we all were there. And my buddy John Smith, who's now a DJ over at Arrow, we were sitting there bowling, and they have the TV monitors above the bowling lanes. Yeah. And there's a monster truck rally going on the TV. And John Smith, he's sitting there, and he turns to me and he goes, hanging out in Mesquite, bowling, watching monster trucks. Pretty sure this is what giving up on your dreams feels like. And I'm like, yeah.
I love it.
So, gotta love Mesquite. Anyway, that's going to do it for the Holy Hive Show today. Thank you, everyone, for supporting. Be sure to check out holyhiveutah.com. Follow us on Twitter, which we now have up.
Twitter.
We actually had to change our handles.
Buried the fucking lead. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So we got Twitter up. Originally what happened is we took the handle Holy Hive Utah, and then for no reason, like while we were just kind of planning out our content strategy and stuff, like a month went by and we hadn't posted it, and our account got locked.
Yep.
And I've literally sent dozens of emails to Twitter trying to get it unlocked, and have gotten no response and no sign that they're ever going to unlock that handle. So we just changed our Instagram handle and Twitter handle to Holy Hive UT. So it's now Holy Hive UT. Sorry for the confusion. If you look up Holy Hive, though, it's going to pop up.
It'll pop up eventually.
Yeah.
Holy Hive UT.
Holy Hive UT. So follow us on Twitter. Check us out on Instagram. Visit the website, holyhiveutah.com. Subscribe on YouTube.
Kiss your mother.
All that fun stuff. Kiss your mother. Tie your trees down. Tie your trampolines down. It's going to get crazy.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
I thought hurricane season was over.
All right. We'll see you next week. Love you.